Let's go over a little bit of some more Chinese medicine or Chinese Taoist concepts here, right? So Qi-Gong is kind of a big topic, much like yoga. There's a variety of things to think about. There's a variety of ways of practicing it. So let's give you an introduction to maybe breaking some of that down. The first thing is maybe to understand what Qi is, right? This kind of magical thing that we call energy. Let me move over here so that I can actually see what I wrote. Yeah, but I prefer to look at this. So the character for Qi is steam rising above rice, right? So that's something to think about in terms of how we're going to maybe approach our experience of Qi. If you have a bowl of rice, you have this kind of force moving up from it. It has a scent to it. It has a flavor to it. It evokes certain things. So you can think of Qi, or energy, as this kind of intermediate thing between matter and maybe spirit. Okay, it's actually a movement of things as well. So in Western kind of physics, we have this idea that everything is energy, right? E equals mc squared. Nothing is truly physical. It really isn't what it appears to be, but there's actually like a mix of these smaller subatomic particles that are doing this dance, right? What creates that dance? What creates that kind of animation? It's energy. So we kind of think of Qi as this fundamental substance in the universe, right? Not just here on Earth, but throughout the whole, our galaxy and other galaxies. All phenomenon is produced by Qi, so it's this intermediate substance that's tangible and intangible, and that's something that we can kind of manipulate, right? We can kind of tap into it with their thoughts, with their movements, with the seasons that Nick talked about, right? With foods that we eat and so forth. Please keep in mind as you experience this, it doesn't conform well to our left side brains, right? It's something that you need to experience. And for different people, which we all are, you're going to have a different experience of it. So be careful of comparing yourself, right? Be careful of the written information on this is meant to open up the experience of that, right? So inspiring you to figure out what this is, to have your own kind of version of it. So most likely, and with all the students I've worked with, they've already experienced Qi. They just don't have the awareness. They haven't given the space, right, for their mind to capture what that was. And oftentimes it's like, oh, I've already kind of felt that. So a real quick way of maybe having that initial experience, if you haven't, is to take your fingers, the top of your fingers, and place them in the middle of your palm, which is a Lao Gong point, pericardium 8. It's a very powerful acupuncture point. What we're going to do is just invigorate it. So kind of, jam your fingers in there a bit. Shake out, get some blood moving, which also kind of affects the Qi. And open them up a bit. Now quiet your mind. Open up to the possibility that there could be Qi between your hands. And just see what you feel. And place both of your palms, right, at each other and kind of vacillate between coming closer and further apart. Do you feel something? Oftentimes what a lot of us will kind of report is it kind of feels like two magnets repelling each other. Maybe more subtle, but yet there's something there. And as you get closer, you can feel more of that intensity, and maybe you also feel this thing called heat, which is just another signature of energy, right? So heat is, in a thermal kind of capacity, it's a giving of energy. Coolness is a taking away of energy, okay? So sometimes when you do exercises, you warm up. Sometimes you can also cool down. So please keep in mind that this is different for different people. So if you didn't feel it, no worries, but open up your mind to the possibility you may see Qi or feel Qi in a different way. So in Chinese medicine, we classify Qi as this essential substance of the body that maintains functionality and overall health, right? So that's what we're tapping into with our herbs. It's the focus of our acupuncture points and meridians. And all of our body activities are produced by Qi. So again, it's this intermediate thing that we're going to look at and analyze to see how both the spirit and the material form are working together, or maybe not working together, okay? So what is Qi? It's a big topic, like we mentioned. It has power, and that's often the Western mind first concept of it is. It moves things, it animates things. Please also understand it has intelligence, okay? So some of you might have had a treatment, or you've been in a space where you felt connected to the energy around you, and you might have had epiphanies. You might have had messages. We also want to think of what allows this Qi, as Nick was mentioning in the seasons, to do what it needs to do. That's the intelligence, okay? We're a microcosm of that whole system. So the intelligence that we're tapping into with doing Qi-Gong, getting treatments, living by the seasons, is readily available to us. It's just a matter of slowing things down, opening up ourselves to that, allowing a space for us to dance with it versus trying to control it or work against it, okay? So many different systems have their own version of this. The Western system seems to be lagging behind. So in Hindu, we have Sit or Prana. Hawaiian have Mana. Tibetans have Lung. It's part of their kind of breakdown of like patterns as well. So it kind of taps into the lungs. Hebrew Ra. Japanese have Ki, like Reiki. What's that?
Ruach.
Ruach. I don't know if I'll be able to reproduce that. I'll work on that. Japanese have Ki, so like Reiki, right? It's another kind of version of Qi. And in Western kind of medicine, we are opening up the idea that there's this thing called vital energy. And they're doing more and more research and even using Qi-Gong in medical Qi-Gong practices to see how Qi or meditative states can affect our energies, right? And how does that work with the immune system? So we're kind of at the cutting edge of a lot more information as research is really able to kind of verify that this is real and how does it work with our bodies, right? So the power of Qi needs intelligence of the Qi to give it direction and focus, okay? And you can think of that as just the underpinnings of nature and how things flow, okay? Let's see if I can do this. Opposite direction. So then the question is, what is Qi-Gong, right? So we're going to kind of play a little bit with this. And we said it's a big topic. Well, Qi is this energy. It's this life force kind of animating substance, right? It has intelligence, it has flow, it has power to it. Gong or Kong is cultivation, it's work, it's practice, mastery, right? The important thing to kind of extract from that is you're never really done. You don't really ever master this. You're in a process of uncovering more and more of it, having more of an experience of it, okay? So it's ever so ongoing. It incorporates usually the three kind of basics. We have the physicality, which we can kind of talk about as like the Jing, and there's different ways of translating Jing. There's the Qi itself, which kind of is mostly associated with our breathing. Could also be our emotions. And then there's the Shen, the mental training, right? The focusing the mind on something. So the Shen has two parts to it. Part of it is your mechanical mind and how you're maybe using logic or corralling your mind to maybe view one thing in a particular way like we do in meditation. Or it's also maybe the spiritual side of that awakening, the opening, and allowing that space for things to kind of come to you. So the ancient Chinese master specific techniques to balance the body's Qi. And ideally here we're living in harmony with the Qi around us, right? So we have this idea of Tian, Ren, and Di. So heaven, earth, and man. And we're kind of in this dance between these opposing forces, right? We have this abundance of earth Qi beneath us. We have abundance of this kind of heavenly Qi above us. And we're just kind of in the middle of that. And that's when we go back to the Taoist symbol of yin and yang. That's what we're always looking at harmonizing for good health, for longevity, right? And as the seasons do their change and do their dance, there's different kind of combinations. There's different recipes of yin and yang, okay? And ideally we allow that to flow within us, and therefore maybe we can live to be 100 years of age, if not longer, okay? So then we have a quote, life comes into being because Qi is amassed, is brought together. When Qi is scattered, a person dies, right? And indeed, when you go through the death process, your Qi will scatter a bit, but it also taps into what Nick was saying, that if we don't live within a system of following how the Qi moves and how it does its dance, it'll break things down more quickly, okay? So, you can also categorize Qi-Gong into two kind of general sections. It's static versus dynamic. So we have this emphasis on motionless kind of movement of Qi, so using your mind. And as Nick said, that might be a better practice to do, let's say, in the wintertime. Then we have dynamic Qi-Gong, right, where it involves movement of the body, maybe more aggressive or maybe a little bit softer, depending on the seasons, depending on the overall focus of what you want to do. There's also different schools, and when we think of the schools of Qi-Gong, we want to think of the end result of that. So spiritual Qi-Gong is going to maybe lending towards this possibility of enlightenment or increasing awareness or unity with the cosmos around you. A martial Qi-Gong training school will be using breath and posture to generate more power, okay? Ideally to fight, to protect, to guard, okay? Medical Qi-Gong itself has the end application as to help somebody heal. Now there's a lot of overlap. You can really dissect this, and there really isn't complete separation between these, but what is the end application? Medical Qi-Gong is we're looking at training ourselves, opening up our awareness, opening up our sensitivities to energy, being able to diagnose, and then helping our patients move in the right direction for their Qi, okay? So it's a way of maybe helping somebody, healing them without using acupuncture, without using herbs. And from a scale of least evasive to more evasive, you can think of acupuncture and herbs as being relatively evasive in comparison to doing Qi-Gong, or to meditating, or prayer, or being in a state of being one with things. Make sense? So then the question is, what does the patient need? What do we need? And in medical Qi-Gong, we often say that putting a needle, putting metal into flesh creates a shock. And when that shock kind of is created, the yin and yang separate. Very momentarily, but that separation allows the ability to adjust things. No different than the shocks you get throughout your life. The kind of a reawakening to how are things working? Are they working appropriately or not? Okay. So in medical Qi-Gong, we often have purging, we have tonifying, and regulating. Those are the three basics of that. Okay. Kind of want to purge out the unnecessary things, the things that are impeding things, not letting things flow appropriately, not letting the dance to be completely danced. Tonifying is adding something, we're strengthening it. Okay. Then last, we always want to go into harmonizing or regulating. We don't want more or less. From a Western point of view, if a little bit is good, more is even better, right? But that's not how we look at it with Chinese medicine. We want to be in a state of harmony. There's plenty, there's an abundance of these things. It's a matter of us working with that, letting go at the right time of year, holding on at the right time of year, cultivating, and also using, okay? So being in a state of harmony is paramount for this. So again, these are your methods of intervention. You can see being and prayer at the top, and as we go down, we're getting to more of the kind of evasive sides of things. And it's not that, acupuncture and herbs are evasive in comparison to doing surgeries, but to some degree in comparison to being in a state of meditation, I think you get the understanding of that. So the golden ball exercise that we're going to go over is a really simple, very fun, and if you fall into it, I would say for about 10 to 15 minutes, very relaxing way of balancing the 8 directions of Qi, okay? So it helps to rebalance, so you can use this after periods of time where things are off kilter, such as if you're on a long flight, you're going through many time zones, so for jet lag, times of transition. And you might already feel this as you go from one season to the next, there's this kind of upheaval of things. Things kind of get a little strange, they feel different. Maybe your sleep and maybe your diet get thrown off. Maybe relationships have challenges to them. So times of transition. Daylight savings, right? We're going to be coming upon that in a few weeks. Emotional transitions, right? Maybe unexplained transitions. Sometimes there's also tied to the seasons and how we go through those and kind of emulate the energy of those seasons. We're also going to be using our hands and the palms. And much like we just activated your Lao Gong point, we're going to use that to move things. So there's a strong electromagnetic field, right, that can help lead and guide the Qi. So we can use our hands to diagnose, but also to move Qi. Okay, these are amazing tools. Okay, and it's almost like a tuning fork. We have the 5, going down to the 2, going down to the 1. So much like you hitting a tuning fork, ding, that's a vibration of energy. So we can use these to move things out and also capture and bring things in. Kind of the same pattern as in your lower limbs as well. Okay. Yeah, and then you can do this as many times as you desire. There is something magical about hitting the 10, 15, 20, 15, 10, 12-minute mark, right? And you'll feel like this kind of unwinding of things. So I usually tell my students to pay attention to that, right? There should be like a shift in your awareness, a shift in kind of your consciousness. Things that normally were affecting you prior to doing that exercise should be readjusted a bit, if that makes sense. You can always go back to those things if they're really necessary as you get done with the practice. But be willing to hold the space for that, let go of what's unnecessary, and then be open to whatever you might need to face when you're done with that. Okay, so let's practice this. So if you want to get up, we're going to have 4 parts to it. We have the hand movements, which are going to be working with the 8 directions of Qi. We're going to add breathing to it, foot positioning. So breathing is just inspiration and outspiration, inhalation, exhalation. Foot position is just going to be the heels and the balls of your feet. And then we're going to maybe look at the Shen, the mind. Okay? So the 8 directions, right, directional movements of Qi within the body. We have a gathering, we have a dispersing, right? We have a rising and a falling, right? We have an expanding and a contracting. We have a flow in and a flow out, okay? So we're going to be tapping into those in a particular sequence, all right? So this will go over it. This is also listed on your handout. So if you want to think of you being, and we'll add more to the imagination of this, the mind part, the Shen part too, but think of you wading into a golden river or a golden stream, okay? Usually tell my students you can play with that lovely golden energy, okay? We're going to gather that. So think of like gathering a ball, and if your Lao Gong points, your pericardium 8 points are activated, you might feel something between your hands, like a basketball or a beach ball. Then allow that to rise up. And we don't want to go super high, we're kind of going to chest level, wherever you're comfortable. We want to expand it out, contract it in. Have it flow in, flow out, descend, and then disperse it back to the environment. And gather new, let it rise up, expand, contract, flow in, flow out, descend, disperse. Now I want you to think of like steam rising above rice, or maybe fog drifting in from the coast, the breath of the Tao, and try to emulate the movements of that. It's not quick, it's not really super slow, it just flows. And disperse. Okay. And we'll get to that in a second. Okay, does everybody feel the initial connection to this thing called Qi? Yeah? Okay, let's amplify that a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do then is go into, let me see here, the breathing. So simply it's just an alternating breathing in and breathing out, okay? So as I gather, I breathe in. As I rise, I breathe out. Expand, in, kind of natural. Condense down, out. Breathe in, come in. Breathe out, out. This is where it gets a little bit weird. Breathe in as you descend. Breathe out as you disperse. So just repeat. Okay, and just continue. And allow yourself to fall deeply into your breathing. Right, we're thinking more diaphragmatic or belly breathing. So allow your breathing to go lower. Ideally, breathe through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. If either one of those are restrictive in any ways, then just breathe in a way that sustains life. Okay. If you do find yourself going quickly, too fast, speeding up, try to slow things down. It's a trick of the mind. Okay, breathing is good. Hand positions are good. Foot positions, you're just going to vacillate. So when you gather, you're going to be on the toes, heels, toes, heels, toes, heels. Again, the weird one, when we descend, toes, heels to disperse. And then you repeat. Toes, heels, toes, heels, toes, heels. The weird one, toes, and heels. Okay? Now when you move and rock back and forth, it's just a gentle. You don't have to become a Nordic ski jumper. It's just a general rocking back and forth. At some point, and this is no different than kind of body mechanics, you're going to feel that you naturally kind of do it. I just had a baby, and all of a sudden, like every time I stand still, I find myself bouncing and rocking, right? Or if you're on, let's say, a boat, a ship, you get off of it, you still feel yourself kind of doing that. So again, these movements kind of become part of what's ingrained into how your physiology will operate a little bit. Okay? Good, good, good. Any questions on that so far? Everybody has it down, kind of simple? So last but not least is using your Shen, using your mind. Okay? So this is how we can maybe amplify this into being more of a tonification or a purging or harmonizing. Okay? So for now, let's look at it more in an equalized, harmonizing fashion. So as we gather, we're gathering this kind of golden, vibrant, bright earth chi. Allow it to come up, to feel it rise up. Expand it out, really allow it to stretch out and grow. Now when we condense it down, see that it gets really, really more intense. Feel it really vibrate more. You can bring it, have it flow in, rush over all your physiology, gathers anything unnecessary, pulls it out. Bring it back down to the earth and disperse it. Okay? So this is one way of using your Shen, thinking of more bright, vibrant version of that, maybe a turbidity. So think of maybe, let's say, a brownish color of that golden energy as it comes out and washes over your physiology. Okay? The breathing would still be even, everything else would still be the same. Okay, make sense? So that's the easiest way to think about that. Good. So let's just do this for a couple of minutes. So ideally for your stance, we didn't talk about that. Shoulder width, some say a little bit further. And then we want our feet kind of underneath our knees. So this helps protect our knees. We're not doing a lot of crazy movements, but this helps as you move your body so that your knees don't kind of have problems long term. Okay. So shoulder width, you can just jump out. Wherever you jump out is usually kind of that kind of spacing. And then just make sure that your toes are straight ahead. Okay, there's times where we use a boss stance or we open it up to gather more energy or to reduce energy. Now it's more neutral. Okay, so take a deep breath in, go on your toes. Yes, the energy, breathe out, rise up, go to the heels, expand, contract, go in, go out. Descend, disperse, repeat. And see if you can just fall into it more and more with each cycle. And what I usually like telling my students is see if you can really slow it down. Challenge your mind and your awareness to really be at one with the exercise. How does everybody feel? Good, yeah, a little bit more relaxed, yeah. So this is kind of a very general exercise, right? Don't think of it as working too much or too little. Kind of a nice balance between using your body, moving the qi, moving the blood, right? You can maybe do it in warmer environments. Maybe you'll perspire a little bit, but most likely you won't perspire too much. So kind of more of a neutral exercise that you can do more often. It's a really fun one to do outside. So if by chance you're hiking, if you're in a lovely place, if you're next to a stream or a little creek, it's even nicer. And just kind of fall into that. Ideally do it kind of in a place that you're a little bit protected from the wind. You might notice that animals come close to you, maybe are seeing what you're doing as well. So let the magic of this, if you're doing it outside, just unfold. So maybe close your eyes, but be willing to open them up every once in a while and just see how those shifts takes place. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much.